So here we are, looking at the sequel to Dead Rising, Dead Rising 2. Dead Rising 1 was a really popular title for the Xbox platform, so it was only right that that game got a sequel. Not only did Capcom make the overall scope of the game larger, but they also corrected many of the issues that players and critics had with the original game, which we will go into detail about in this review. Not only are the zombies back, but we also have more survivors to rescue, psychos to fight, and also fun weapons to use. So without further ado, let's get into it. So right off the bat, we're introduced to our main character for this adventure, Chuck Greene, who is this famous motocross champion who resides in Fortune City, another fictional city that is based in Las Vegas. Anyway, this game takes place 5 years after the events of Dead Rising 1, and now Chuck is part of this game show that pretty much kills zombies for fun and entertainment. After you collect the prize money from your victory, the zombies somehow broke into Fortune City and now is causing tons of damage and havoc. Katie, who is Chuck's daughter, was found hiding under a couch, and this is where our story begins. Chuck is also being framed for this outbreak and havoc, so now we are sent on an adventure to find out who is truly behind this. So I will say, I kinda enjoyed the story more than the one in Dead Rising 1. I know people don't care for Chuck nearly as much as Frank, and from a character perspective, I agree. Chuck is a little bit more bland in comparison, but I do love the dynamic with him and his daughter and just the overall pacing of the story. I'm not gonna spoil the game story, I do want you guys to experience it for yourself, but it is something that I did enjoy while playing this title. In terms of the gameplay, Dead Rising 2 is a true refinement of the formula. Not only is the game a tad more forgiving, but the game has improved movement, better AI, and also new mechanics that are now mainstays in the Dead Rising series. The biggest example of this is the weapon crafting, which I absolutely love. You essentially take two items that you find and craft a super weapon based on what goes together. Like if you take a baseball bat and a box of nails, well, you can create a spike bat, or take a Blanca mask and a battery, and so on. As you progress and rescue people and beat psychos, you can find these cards which tells you these combinations. But I love just experimenting with the inventory that I had, and that sense of discovery you get is amazing. Escort missions are back, and I'm glad to say these are miles better than they were previously. The AI does not get stuck, they actually use weapons effectively, and they can actually keep up with you. I love it. You can also use things like wheelchairs or carry certain survivors to get a move on things if you feel like they're moving too slow. Overall, this was a much needed improvement. Thanks, Capcom. The leveling system is back and pretty much works the same way it did in Dead Rising 1. The more zombies you kill, the more psychos you defeat, the more escort missions you do, the more experience you get for Chuck to level up, and of course that increases many of the stats you need to be good at this game. Speed, inventory slots, damage output, so on. The game also retains the feature of you starting the story over and keeping your current level, which is nice. Oh, and before I forget, you can actually walk and shoot at the same time. Yes! Now, as much fun as I had with Dead Rising 2, there are some things I was not too fond of. First off, the psychopaths this time around, they were just not as memorable as the ones in Dead Rising 1. Not to say they were bad, but I just really don't remember many of them. Also, the area which you explore, yes, it's larger in scale, but I found it to be more of a chore to travel around. Yes, this can be addressed with the vehicles that you can ride, but still, the larger map is impressive from a scale perspective, but I just did not personally enjoy it as much as the map in Dead Rising 1. The mall wasn't as memorable either, but I guess the strip is the main focus. Now, on a positive note, this game does a better job with the time management mechanic. The time limits are not as strict, and I felt the game gave you a fair amount of time to get to your destination. You also have this story mechanic where Katie needs Zombirex, which is the medicine that prevents her from turning, every 24 hours. I did not have a hard time finding any of this stuff. If you just explore around and complete some of the side missions and escort missions, you'll be fine. As you see, changing clothes is still an option. I have my Servbot helmet once again, and I am glad to see this is still a thing in this game. It adds to the quirky personality that this game tends to have. Overall, Dead Rising 2 is a fun game that refines the overall formula, but there were some missteps here in terms of the psychopaths, the map not being as interesting, and also Chuck not being as interesting of a character. The game still has tons of positives: improved combat, the weapon combinations, which are the highlight for me, and a pretty engaging story in my opinion. There's also some spin-off material in the form of DLC, and also the off-the-record release, which is essentially DR2 with Frank and additional content. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.